Gideon v. Wainwright happened in 1963, where the Supreme Court ruled that the Constitution requires the state to provide defense attorneys to criminal defendants charged with serious offenses who cannot afford lawyers themselves. The case began when Clarence Earl Gideon was arrested in 1961. Clarence Earl Gideon was charged with breaking and entering into the Panama City, Florida pool hall and stealing money from the hall's vending machines. At trial, Gideon could not afford a lawyer himself, so he requested that an attorney be appointed to represent him. He was told by the judge that Florida only provided attorneys to indigent defendants charged with crimes that might result in the death penalty if they were found guilty. After he was sentenced to 5 years in prison, Gideon filed a habeas corpus petition to the Florida Supreme Court, claiming that his conviction was unconstitutional because he lacked a defense attorney at trial. After the Florida Supreme Court denied his petition, Gideon appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, which reviewed his case in 1963. The Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision written by Justice Hugo Black, ruled that Gideon's conviction was unconstitutional because Gideon was denied a defense lawyer at trial. The court ruled that the Constitution's Sixth Amendment gives defendants the right to counsel in criminal trials where the defendant is charged with a serious offense, even if they cannot afford one themselves. It states that in all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. Before the 1930s, the Supreme Court interpreted this language as only forbidding the state from denying a defense attorney at trial. From the 1930s on, however, the court interpreted the amendment as requiring the state to provide defense attorneys in capital trials. The court took this situation further, ruling that the Sixth Amendment requires states to provide defense attorneys to any indigent criminal defendant charged with a felony. First, the court noted that the states' justice, like the federal government's, are bound to the Sixth Amendment because the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause applies the key provisions of the Bill of Rights against the states. Second, the court argued that the Sixth Amendment requires a state to provide defense lawyers if necessary because such lawyers are essential to a fair trial. The court noted that America's criminal justice system is adversarial, meaning that the state assumes and uses its resources to establish the defendant's guilt before the defendant is proven guilty in a court of law. Because in this adversarial system, even the intelligent and educated layman has small and sometimes no skill in the science of law. The court easily concluded that the presence of defense counsel is fundamental and essential to fair trials in the United States. Gideon was appointed counsel, eventually retried and acquitted on all charges. In 1972, in Argesinger v. Hamlin, the Supreme Court further extended the right to legal counsel to include any defendant charged with a crime punishable by imprisonment. Gideon v. Wainwright was part of the Supreme Court's innovative approach to criminal justice in the 1950s and 1960s. The Warren Court extended an unprecedented array of rights to criminal defendants, including the right to counsel in interrogations, the right to remain silent during arrest and questioning, and the right to be informed of these rights. The court's affirmation of the constitutional rights of criminal defendants also included less famous cases. In this case, the Supreme Court recognized that in a society of profoundly unequal resources, hostile criminal justice, and ignorance of complex law, justice can only go on if the states provide an indigent defendant with an attorney.